Hey everyone, are you curious to see what cities in Ontario have lost the greatest amount of value? Well, I have here some information I'm going to share today on my podcast, Canadian Mortgage Weekly, Canada's only weekly video mortgage news podcast. I'm Joe Bladdock, your host. This is episode 171. And as usual, please make sure that if you would like to talk to a mortgage broker, I have 14 years experience and you can book a call for 5 minutes with me in the chat below. We have an appointment link there, and follow me on my other social media channels as well. Would love to give you some advice on your mortgage and help you get started on your way, especially as we look over these top 10 cities in Ontario. I mean, there's a lot of cities that have lost value in Canada and the country on the whole there. But when we look at Ontario specifically, we have a lot of cities here in Ontario that have lost a lot of value. And if we take a look at them individually, we can take a look at how much value they've lost and is it an affordable market to get into now? Because there's a lot of markets that are completely unaffordable for the average Canadian. If we take a look at average home prices and the average income cannot afford the average home in Canada on their own. You need at least 3 or 4 incomes combined to be able to afford that average home these days in Canada. Really interested to take a look at this list with you all today. We have here the top 10 cities in Ontario that have lost the most value. So as I go through this list, feel free to pop down in the chat what cities you think have lost the greatest amount of value in Ontario. Perhaps you live in one of these cities. Perhaps you have lived in one of these cities prior. Perhaps you don't like this city and you're thinking, well, of course, this city has lost a lot of value. Pop that city in the chat. We're looking at the top 10 Ontario cities. And if we have time, we'll get into the bonus round and we'll take a look at top Canadian cities as a whole as well. But we'll take a look at it if we have enough time at the end. So if we look at the top Ontario city that has lost the most value, and we're looking here at year over year change, we're looking at 2023 prices versus 2022 prices. And if we take a look at these specific datas, then we see that Kitchener is actually the city that has lost the greatest amount of value in Ontario. The city of Kitchener has lost 4.9% in value for the average single family home price in Kitchener. So that's really interesting. We see here that in 2022, the average single family home price for a single family home in Kitchener was $806,550. And with a drop of 4.9%, that represents a total drop of $39,850, which brings down the single family home average price in 2023 to $766,700. So there you got it, guys. If you wanted to take a look here at number 1, there we have it. We covered off number 1 first. Now we'll start at the bottom and we'll work our way up to cover off the rest of the cities. So if we take a look at the top 10 here, we'll start with number 10, Oakville. Richmond Hill, actually. Richmond Hill was one of the cities here that was on the top 10 list. And in 10th place, Richmond Hill lost 1.3% of value. But do you think 1.3% is a lot of money? I think it is a lot of money. If we take a look at the dollar value, the average single family home price in Richmond Hill in 2022 was $1,825,665. A 1.3% drop in the single family home price in Richmond Hill brings the value of that home down to by $23,576 to an average single family home price of $1,802,089. So a $23,000 drop there in Richmond Hill. Oakville is number 9 on the list. It's 9th place. It lost 1.7% of its value in single family home prices, which is a really interesting look at it because, again, the single family home price was $1,689,068 in 2022. And with that 1.7% price change, we had a $28,815 drop in value, which brings the average single family home price in Oakville for 2023 for $1,660,253. Wow. Just imagine having a home over $1.5 million. I mean, you get to live in Oakville, but hey, that's a big mortgage, in my opinion. Let's look at number 8. Number 8, we go all the way from Oakville, which is the west side of Toronto, and we go to the east side of Toronto. We take a look at Ajax. Ajax had a median single family home price in 2022 of $1,079,129. And there was a 1.8% drop in value in Ajax in between 2022 and 2023, which brought the prices down by $19,056 to $1,060,073. And just about 5-6 years ago, I was looking at Ajax as an affordable market to have first-time homebuyers buy their first home at. And I did a lot of first-time homebuyer seminars in the Ajax Durham area and had a lot of first-time homebuyers purchase their first-time property in Ajax. So they did really well here buying in Ajax, because I remember doing files that were $400,000, $500,000, and now we're seeing these values over $1 million. All right. Number 7 on the list. If you're just joining me here today, this is Joe Bladdock on Canadian Mortgage Weekly, Canada's weekly mortgage news podcast. And we're taking a look at the top 10 Ontario cities that have lost the most real estate value. We have taken a look at Richmond Hill, which was in 10th place, Oakville in 9th place, Ajax in 8th place, and now we got Niagara Falls, Ontario in 7th place. Niagara Falls lost 1.8% again, but it's a relatively small amount in dollars. It's $11,800, and that is because in Niagara Falls, houses are actually extremely affordable compared to the rest of Ontario. We have an average single-family home price in Niagara Falls in 2022 of $641,500. And if we look at that same house in 2023 with a drop of $11,800, it's $629,700. So quite a drop in value percentage-wise, but not much dollar-wise. So if you're looking as a first-time home buyer to get into a market that has average homes that are under the Canadian average house price, Niagara Falls is actually one of those cities in Ontario where you can actually purchase a home that is slightly below the average national Canadian house price, which is pretty fantastic. All right, everybody, we're going to get on to number 6 here today on Canadian Mortgage Weekly, Canada's only video mortgage news weekly podcast here. And we're looking at St. Catharines. St. Catharines, right near Niagara Falls, and we have the same figures around here as well. A 1.8% drop. Same average house price went from $641,500 to $629,700. So not a big drop there compared to some municipalities like Oakville or Richmond Hill, where we saw drops in value of over $20,000, but overall drop there as well. All right, we have here. So we're taking a look. If you're just joining me today, we're taking a look at the top 10 Ontario cities that have dropped the most value. So we're taking a look at Richmond Hill in 10th place, Oakville in 9th place, Ajax in 8th place, Niagara Falls in 7th place, St. Catharines in 6th place, and in 5th place we have Milton. Milton here is a drop of 2.4%, which works out to $30,544. So this so far is the biggest drop in value in terms of dollars and in terms of percentage rates. So that's fantastic to see that, it's not crazy numbers compared to 2022. It's 2.4%. We have here a drop from $1,109,739 to a drop to $1,085,442. Sorry, $1,223,226. I was spouting off would-be numbers again. So next on the list, we have Brampton, Ontario. We're getting up there in losses in value here. We have a city here that lost 2.6% in its average single-family home price value. The dollar amount was not that great here. It's a $28,797 drop in value here. From a purchase price of $1,126,001 down to $1,097,204. So that represents a smaller drop than Milton, but a bigger percentage rate. So in Brampton, we see that houses are actually more affordable than in Milton. Okay, taking a look at the next on the list, we have Oshawa, Ontario. They are part of the top 10 list here as we take a look at the top 10 cities that have lost the most value located in Ontario from 2022 to 2023. So in 2022, we had a house price in Oshawa of $848,063. And the house prices did drop from last year to this year, from 22 to 23 by 2.8%. And that represents a dollar amount of $23,451. So if we take a look at the current single family home price that this is based on for 2023, obviously things have changed a little bit since 2023 right now, but we're seeing a house price of $824,613. Keep in mind that if you're looking at getting into a home today, make sure you get a pre-approval set up right away. That gives you an idea of what you can afford and saves you from any disappointment. If you're shopping out there for a home with your real estate agent and put an offer on something you like, if you have a pre-approval in place beforehand, at least you know that you'll be able to get that mortgage, be approved, and how much your mortgage payments will come out to. It's really important, and it gives you a lot of confidence and security knowing that you have something like that in place ready to go. Next on the list, we did Oshawa. We have Mississauga, Ontario. Mississauga, Ontario, one of the biggest cities in Ontario. As a kid, as I was visiting Toronto, I grew up in London, Ontario. We used to drive through Mississauga, and I remember seeing the planes as you come into Mississauga on the 401, and I remember thinking, wow, Mississauga is not that much different than Toronto. As a matter of fact, what makes it very different? Well, it's actually the house prices. If we take a look at the house prices in Mississauga, we have a 3.1% drop from 22 to 23. That represents a $41,740 drop between those 2 years. And that is a house price that was of in 2022, $1,338,112, down to a house price of $1,296,372. So with that decrease in house price, no wonder I'm seeing some bidding wars happening again in 2024. And I'm seeing a lot of people trying to get into the market right now in 2024. There's a lot of communities in Ontario that have lost values in their house prices. So by being able to see these communities right here, we are seeing some opportunity here. If you're looking at getting into real estate and you think and believe that the market is going to go up from here. All right, we're down to the top 3 cities in Ontario that have lost the most value here on Canadian Mortgage Weekly, Canada's weekly mortgage video news podcast. And before I get into the top 3 cities, I wanted to take a moment and just give you another way to get in touch with me. I'm a mortgage broker in Ontario. You can book a call with me in the link in the video description below, or you can send me a message on social media and we can start a conversation. Anytime you need any mortgage advice, I'm a mortgage broker. Usually I get paid by the lenders, so there's typically no fee to you. So looking at the third most value drop, I don't know if I said that right, but the third highest drop in value, let's say it that way, we have Markham, Ontario. Markham went from $1,742,409. Sheesh, that's quite a high house price. $1.7 million. Geez. To have a mortgage that high, you're looking at a 5-digit mortgage payment if you have a really bad rate. Okay, so we're looking at Markham, and it went down by 3.2%, which represents a dollar value of $56,043. And it gives you a final value for 2023 for a single family home in Markham of $1,686,366. Now, to qualify for a home like this, typically a buyer will have a lot of cash as a down payment, and they're typically using the cash from the sale of their prior home to get into this home. And that's a lot of the way, actually, a lot of these buyers get into these homes. They'll buy a starter home, they'll live in it for a few years and build some equity, have the property appreciate, and continue moving to bigger properties. So Markham, Ontario, that was the third highest drop in value. The second highest drop in value here in Ontario, if you haven't put it in the chat already, it's Burlington, Ontario. So if we're looking at it from 2022, we had a price of $1,260,400. We had a 4.7% drop in Burlington from 22 to 23. And that's a dollar value of $59,583, giving us a 2023 single-family home value of $1,200,817. Quite a drop in value in Burlington, everybody. 4.7%, quite a large amount of money, of $60,000, just a few dollars away from that. All right. And we're going to get into the top number one, which I did mention at the start of the show, just to give you guys an idea of what it was, just to give you the idea. If you didn't want to watch the whole episode, that you got the information right away. But again, number one, Kitchener, Ontario, highest drop in value, which is interesting because Waterloo is not on this list. Cambridge is not on this list. The top 10 list only includes Kitchener as one of the Tri-Cities that have lost the highest amount of real estate values in Ontario. So in Kitchener, we had a single family home price of $806,550. The percentage change was 4.9%, which brings down the average home price in Kitchener for a single family home by $39,850, which brings the single family home price to $766,700, everybody. So Kitchener still being a fairly affordable market to purchase a home in. If we take a look at the top 10 lists here and we look at the most affordable markets, what are the most affordable markets that give us the best opportunity as well as the lowest prices? And when I say best opportunity, if you're in the same boat as I am, real estate prices have come down. There's a lot of immigration in this country, which is keeping the demand up because people still need a place to live. So there remains a strong demand for real estate. Even though rates have gone up significantly here in Canada, and when we look at Kitchener being at $766,700, St. Catharines and Niagara Falls being at $629,700 a pair, we see that those are the three markets that are probably the most affordable in Canada out of this top 10 list that have shown that have had the highest drop in percentage value on their real estate prices. If you want to know where I received this information, I got this information from an article on village-life.ca, so I credit them for the information. They are a great resource for all things real estate. They have a real estate column, and they have this awesome chart here. And if you really want to get into some of the data, you can actually look at, they put together the top 10, but then they have another list which includes the top 67 countries, not 67 countries, 67 cities in Canada that have lost the most value. So if we look at that, and I'm in Orillia, and I do a lot of my business in Barrie. So let me see if I can load this list. And we'll just take a look and see if Barrie or Orillia have made it on this list. So I'm looking, Barrie, Ontario. It is on the top 67 list. It dropped 0.6%. This is a bonus city. Only represents a change. Actually, this actually represents a gain. Barrie house prices went up between 2022 and 2023. Shows a gain of 0.6%, which is a gain of $4,900. The single family home price was $768,700, and it went up by $4,900, which is 0.6%, to $773,600. So Barrie is on the list, but as a single family home market, which has gone up in value. So very interesting data indeed. Orillia is not on the list. And that's how that list shakes out. So if you're looking for some opportunity in Ontario and would like to get set up with a real estate agent, make sure you connect with me. I can help you get set up with a real estate agent, get your stuff ready to go, and you can get a pre-approval start looking in that market. As I mentioned, Kitchener, number one on the list that has lost the most value since 2022. And Niagara Falls and St. Catharines, some of the most affordable markets that have lost the most value in Ontario, that are actually priced under the Canadian average national house price. And you can get a single family home for that price. So as we move to finish off our episode today, I do want to cover off some news items here on Canadian Mortgage Weekly, which is Canada's weekly mortgage video news podcast. And if we take a look at the rates this week for mortgage rates, they have been trending down just slightly. And when I say just slightly, if you're a home buyer, you probably want to save as much as possible. Well, banks haven't really been switching and lowering rates as I thought they would this week. Only a few have, and those select lenders are they're just offering the slightest discounts right now. But if I take a look at that Canadian bond yield, that really dictates where fixed rates are going in Canada. I mean, over the last 5 days, I have seen that bond yield drop quite considerably. And when I say it dropped quite considerably, I'm looking at it here right in front of me, and we've seen a drop. I think it's about a 20 basis point drop, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if I can bring up. So we did have a high point here on the 26th of March, 3.58. We're at 3.5 right now. But since the high point actually was March 18th, 3.668, everybody, we have been hovering around the 3.5 mark for the last few days. So that's almost a 20 basis point drop. So that gives me a sense that, well, rates keep trying to maintain being up, but there's a lot of, pressure to lower rates right now. And we're seeing this actually by this comment coming out of the Bank of Canada a couple days ago, where there was someone from the Bank of Canada that made some commentary that Canada's GDP is becoming very low in productivity per person in Canada. and Canada is becoming a less productive nation. And one of the ways that the government typically stimulates the economy to become a more productive nation is to lower interest rates. So this can put pressure on the Bank of Canada to lower interest rates. And with the next announcement in April, we remain to see what the decision will be. So join me in April as I cover off Canada's next interest rate announcement, which will happen here on Canadian Mortgage Weekly, Canada's Mortgage Weekly video mortgage news podcast. That's a mouthful. But the rate announcement is very highly anticipated because there's a lot of lenders here that have gone on record saying that rates are coming down in 2024, and that the Bank of Canada will start reducing rates in 2024. And if we look at what banks have said what, well, we have BMO saying June 2024 that rates will come down, and we have the Bank of Nova Scotia saying rates will come down in September. So if we look at those two, and we have a lot more predictions coming in the middle of that and on the same wavelength as BMO and Scotia. But next interest rate announcement is April the 10th. So we are just about 2 weeks away from that. We have 2 weeks to go until the next rate announcement. If you think rates are coming down in April, that's a very aggressive timing, but there's a slight chance it could happen, a tiny drop, but I don't think it will. But this idea of breaking the glass, there was a comment made about that, and I read some commentary about what that means, and that is to lower rates and lower them aggressively. Now, what that would do essentially is it would put some pressure on the dollar to come down if rates went back down, especially if we go in the opposite direction of the United States. The United States have not dropped rates yet, and usually we follow the states, but in this case, we would be taking the lead. And if we drop them aggressively, our dollar would go down, and we'll be able to purchase less. Exporting things to Canada will become more expensive. So with that, we'll make inflationary pressures go back up in Canada. And I'm sure the Bank of Canada doesn't want that. So they're going to have to walk this fine line between stimulating the economy and its productivity and making sure they don't stimulate inflation going up as well at the same time, and doing that in tandem. So I've yet to see what that means. I was trying to think this through, and my initial thoughts are we may see a aggressive rate reduction at the beginning to get things going, but maybe they will crank the rates back on again when they see inflation come back up. So there will be this yo-yo effect. However, are they really interested in doing another yo-yo effect like they did before? I don't think so. Maybe they're going to try to do more of a soft approach. However, it's more of a wait and see approach usually with the Bank of Canada. So if I have to say anything, it would be probably an aggressive drop and then an aggressive increase again. So if rates drop, make sure that you are in contact with your mortgage professional and keep in contact with them. So if rates drop and they start to bottom out, that you either lock in at that time if possible, or make sure you have that conversation if you're staying variable or locking in for a shorter time about what your options are going to be if rates go back up. All right, everybody. If there's any other questions, feel free to leave them down in the chat. If you're just joining me here today, we looked at the top 10 Ontario cities that lost the most value, and we looked at the top 10. And just to recap the top 10 for you here today, if you're just joining me here today, I'll start from number one. Number one, we had Kitchener, then Burlington, then Markham, then Mississauga, Oshawa, Brampton, Whitby, St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, and a couple extra outside of the top 10, Ajax, Oakville, and Richmond Hill. all lost value in Ontario between 2022 and 2023. Thanks for joining me today on Canadian Mortgage Weekly. Make sure you follow me on my social media channels in the video description link below. And if you want to book a call or chat, make sure you click my link below and you can take a look at my calendar and book something for yourself there. And meantime, have a happy Easter. I look forward to seeing you all next week. I hope you have a great long weekend, and we'll talk to you all later.